G'day Bomber fans, we have a massive game coming up this weekend. I'm pumped for this one. It's a sellout at the G, two fierce rivals both in or around the top four, battling it out in front of a sold out crowd. This is pure footy, the build up is huge. This is the first time in over a decade that both these teams have played each other inside the top 8. It should be a cracker of a game, which means a cracker of a preview coming up for the second King's Birthday Eve match. Hopefully it's much like the first one for us, but let's get into it. Before we do though, some votes from the last game to get through. Alrighty, so pretty even vote count from the both of us. The only real difference is Dyson Heppel and Zach Merritt, the last two captains of the club. We couldn't split them, so they both walk away with 3 votes from the weekend. Hind walks away with 6, and Nick Cox gets the role player nod in a bit of a landslide. Not the first time he's been honoured this way this year. The overall tally is looking pretty weird. Merritt has extended his lead. He is miles ahead now. The big mover is Nick Hind, who is now equal 5th with Ben Mackay. That's pretty wild to think about. Not many would have had him in the best 22 a month ago, let alone in the top 5 for our count. Dyson Heppel has also jumped into the top 10, and I gotta say guys, after Merritt and the few chasing him over the 10 votes, there is a massive logjam. There are 12 players that have between 5 and 10 votes, so heaps going on for that podium spot, but it's looking like we have a clear favourite for back-to-back Player of the Year awards in Zach Merritt. Alrighty, Essendon vs Carlton, King's Birthday Eve, the second edition of this new marquee game, and the stakes have gotten a whole lot higher. Last year it was 6th up against 14th. This year it is 2nd up against 5th. The tickets are sold out, so expect a crowd in the high 80s or hopefully low 90s. The winner of this game ends the round in the top 4, and the loser probably slides out closer to the bottom of the top 8. So there's a lot on the line here. It's a must-win for both these teams if they want to be viewed as serious contenders, and both teams are coming into it in form reasonably. They've won 3 of the last 4 games. We have won 3 of the last 4 games. I would say this is our biggest game of the year. Yes, Anzac Day is massive, but the stakes here are just huge. I can't remember a time where Essendon have gone into a game with a result being so meaningful. If we win, we genuinely could mean business. It would be a statement victory. If we lose, everyone will be calling us fake, and there will be question marks hovering over us and our legitimacy. This is one of the biggest games in years for us, so let's talk about it, starting with our in-form opponents. How should we expect Carlton to play? Well, we are very different teams, Essendon and Carlton, so that makes it pretty easy to see who has the upper hand based on how the game is being played. Carlton are probably the best contested footy team in the comp or close to it. They average the most contested possessions a game, the most centre clearances, up there for ground ball gets as well, and it's no surprise. You've got guys like P.O.T.Y, Cripps, Sam Walsh, even Matt Kennedy, who's pretty underrated. Their midfield is tougher and bigger than ours. It's going to be a pretty similar looking game in close and personal to the Gold Coast match, which doesn't bode well for us because I honestly rate the Blues more as a team than Gold Coast. We might get Setterfield back into the team, which should help, but I doubt he makes that much of a difference when he is lining up against a Brownlow medalist in Cripps or a potential Brownlow medalist in Sam Walsh. It's a star-studded engine room built off the back of pure grit. They aren't the cleanest team in the league. You wouldn't trust Cripps to bite off the kicks that Merritt does, but in a night game at the G, dewy, maybe wet from the rain over the weekend, who knows? I think it plays into their hands. This is going to be a really physical match, and Carlton are one of the most physically Carlton are one of the most physically orientated teams in the league. They love a stoppage. They love numbers around the ball. They're hard to contain, especially as we are missing quite a few important midfielders. We have been down in our numbers a lot since the loss of Parrish. We all know this. But our injury list is better than theirs as a whole. They have some great players on the sidelines too, so we can't use personnel as an excuse for a game like this. Neither team is at their best, but they do look pretty scary in the guts right now, Carlton. That's where the game will be won and lost. If it's scrappy, contested, and congested, the Blues have the upper hand. If it is free-flowing and open, it will play into our hands more, so watch out for that and how attractive the game is. The uglier it is, the uglier it could get for us. The annoying thing is that Carlton are genuinely really good in most facets of the game. I really like the way their backline sets up. I was at the Port game last week on Thursday night. It was brutal watching Port try and find ways around that defence. It's a team that destroyed us and found it easy to score against us earlier in the year, Port, but they had no answers for Carlton's team defence. They kept them to just 40 inside 50s, which would be a real issue for us because we are a high inside 50 count team. We don't score much from our entries. In fact, we have the 5th worst rate for goals per inside 50 in the comp, so keeping us to 40 inside 50s would all but keep us out of the game. And the Blues are the opposite. They are actually below average for inside 50s per game, but have the second best goals per inside 50 ratio, and it comes down to their star power up forward. They have 2 Coleman medalists on their list. They have players that can take the game away from you if others are down. Zach Williams has kicked more goals in the last fortnight than any Essendon player has. Matt always has kicked more goals than any of our small forwards this year. They are powerful up forward and solid down back, and it's a great thing to have because it means if one zone is failing, they can still have that other one that holds up. We've seen it a few times. They were leaky against GWS at home, but were good enough to kick 17 goals, and at Gather Round, they found it hard to score against the Dockers, but still kept them to under 10 goals. That's something pretty rare in a team, and it shows just how good the Blues are travelling this year. They are very, very strong across the board. Carlton showed the footy world how good they were at nullifying the impact of individuals against Port. They shut out Charlie Dixon completely. They shut out pretty much every forward, to be honest. They didn't let their interceptors mark. Butters was kept quiet at stoppages. They can do the same to us. They can shut out Merritt, Wright, Ridley, and if you do that, you pretty much get the win. We can't compete with their midfield if Merritt is down. Our backline falls apart if Ridley is on the field without an impact. And on the flip side, there is not much we can really do to keep their stars down because they have so many on the field. You can shut out Cripps, but Walsh will just stand up. You can shut out Curnow, but Mackay will still be around. They have backup in important areas that we don't really have right now. They have 6 or 7 All-Australian players that played in their last game, and we had 3. So it means if the system completely falls apart for Carlton and the game is made by moments, they will have the names that can get them over the line. It's hard to play a defensive brand against a team that has so much individual brilliance running through it. They have a great system that holds up most weeks, but even when it doesn't, they can still get by thanks to the individuals that bring them over the line. And we showed last week against Gold Coast that we aren't really quite at that level yet, despite having the names. We had the chance to win, but our best players just weren't good enough to get the job done. I reckon if the roles were reversed and Carlton had to play that last quarter instead of us against the Suns, they would probably go out and get the 4 points. That's my view. So what about us? What about the Bombers? What are we going to have to look like if we are on top of the Blues? We probably will be on the back foot because of their midfield dominance, so I'm assuming that we'll be playing out of our back half a little bit. But for us to win, I think we need to at least be competitive in the guts, not losing the clearance count drastically, because our worst games this year have been off the back of a negative clearance count. If we can break even or minimise the impact they generate through stoppages, we could be in for the fight. And then, of course, we need to make sure our defence is as sturdy as it possibly can be. And more than that, we need to be good with ball in hand transitioning. That first quarter against Gold Coast should be the blueprint. We kicked 3 goals from our defensive half in the first term, but we could only manage 1 for the rest of the game after that. And I think Carlton, at their worst this year, have looked slow. They have been criticised for their leg speed at times. And on the MCG, a wide ground, that's an area that we can hopefully exploit. We are quick, we are fast when rebounding. That's when we are playing well. So if we are transitioning the way we did against the Suns last weekend in that first quarter, we probably end up winning the game. The issue is we haven't shown the ability to consistently do that throughout a game this year. We have changed our game style a lot this season. Last year we were the 3rd best team at scoring from our back half. This year we are the 9th, and it's how we cut them. We cut them up when we played them last year. We were probably better suited to beat them at this stage last year than we are right now. But that's also because they are a much better team. But I think we need to channel some of that 2023 dare from defence because it'll be important. Some danger players for the Blues: Harry Mackay. I'm saying Mackay instead of Curnow purely for narrative purposes. We finally, after all this time, will be getting to see the Twins match up on each other. They are yet to play an AFL game against each other, which is bonkers to think about, but it's finally going to happen. Harry versus Ben. They will prove they're not the same person, so Harry is a danger player as he fights for top bunk. Sam Walsh, Cripps is going to bully us, but Walsh is the one I'm really worried about. He can be a really damaging player if not contained. And finally, Blake Acres. Our wing stocks are low. We have struggled in that position recently, and Acres is one of the best natural wingers in the comp, so he could easily have a big night. For the Bombers, Nick Martin, he could be a tough player to contain if the game is on our terms. Zach Merritt, if he isn't tagged, he's going to be our danger man, and we saw how well he played last year. He gets up for these big games as well. Finally, a bit out of left field, but Jade Gresham. I think if we win, it's going to be because of the space we find around that 80 to 50 mark, and Gresham is the link-up man there, so he could have a bit of the pill and do good things with it if we are playing well. He's got more goal assists than any other Essendon player this year. Onto the team news, starting with Carlton. There is a chance Jesse Motlop returns, and if he does, I would say it's for Orazio Fantasia. I reckon Mark Pidnett is still a week away from AFL action, and De Koning's going well anyway, so I doubt they do much. I doubt they do too much to the team as a whole. You wouldn't really change much when you're fresh off a huge win against Port Adelaide. As for us, it's not good. Mason Redman will miss the match. He has a small hamstring strain. I think we have enough defensive coverage for Setterfield to come straight in for him. Langford is a test, so he's not 100%. Same with Goldstein. He's probably in the same boat. If Langford isn't fit, I would say Caddy comes in to replace him, or we elect to choose 2 rucks with Goldie and Brian. And I'm also hoping Sartas is replaced as the sub and gets a full VFL game. Maybe Dylan Shield comes into the side, or Archie Roberts Roberts. I know that some are hoping for Saad El Houli, but I would probably like to see him get another week in the VFL so he knows the system a little bit better. I would think Shiel is the more likely option given the big occasion, so my gut feeling is 3 changes: Redmond injured, Bryan replaced, and Sartas omitted, and in comes Setterfield, Shiel, and Goldstein. Alright, prediction, it's a tough game to pick. I wouldn't say it's a 50-50. Carlton are going in as favourites quite clearly. Last I checked, it was around $1.50 on Sportsbet, so the bookies think the Blues are the better team despite the ladder position, and it's hard not to agree after what we've seen these last few weeks. They're in red-hot form, their wins have been impressive, and our last 3 matches haven't been great at all. I think it's quite clear to see how Carlton can win this game. You can find many reasons and point to many reasons why they can win, but you got to dig a little deeper to find the ways that the Bombers can win. My heart's telling me there is a way. There is a way. I don't doubt the boys. I think we can get it done. We've shown we're a bloody good side at our best, but thinking logically about this game and the matchup and the importance and where both sides are, I just see Carlton as the more likely victor. I think it's close, but I'll give it to the Blues by 8 points. I'd love to be proven wrong because this would be a statement victory for the club if we can get it done, but I just think Carlton have more to play for in this game, and they're closer to that premiership than we are right now. That's all though. Preview done. Hopefully you learnt something from it. More likely that you didn't. Leave your predictions in down below. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and as always, go Bombers.